So let's go on to the next segment. We are going on to English cricket. Obviously, we're based in England. English cricket is very important for us, but just around the world, I think people are, paying attention to this whole red ball reset that we've had in English cricket, and it's started. It's getting in the motions, but we'll only really see the effects of it on the first test and future cricket with Brendan McCullum as test coach and Matthew Mott as the new white ball coach. So I did mention this before, but I hadn't really heard of him. Honestly, I hadn't heard of him. Obviously, he's a very good coach because he led Australia women's team to, dominate in ODI, T20 and Test cricket. They had Australian women had a very long ODI win streak, for example, got broken, but, it was I think it was the biggest win streak ever. So he's been a coach for the Australian women's team for a long time. He's transformed them into a very, very good team, the best women's team in the world by far. Why do you think he's left, Dave? Why do you think he decided to swap and to men's cricket and to go to train England's white ball team?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. That's a really difficult one. I mean, it might be a case of like his job's done in Australia women's. It's kind of like, when he joined them, Australia were a very good team, but they weren't the best. But they're a very good team, in the top 2 or 3 teams, and he just finished off the job. Really, he transformed them into currently the best team by far, as you said, in the world. So I think it might be a case of his job's done in Australia. He wants to move to another team, and he decided to move to England men's. And England men, they're in a similar situation. They're top 2 or 3 teams in the world again, and they're looking to improve and become the best team in the world. And that might be what Matthew Mott's coming to do. He did that very well in Australia women's. So I think it's more of a case that he thinks his job's done in Australia, so he's moved to England to start a new job and basically try to do the same thing that he did with the women's cricket.
Yeah, because I think a key factor that I'd say is similar between the Australia women's team and England's white ball team is that the very risky but free approach that they have to white ball cricket, and the fact that they're very good at both teams are very good at dominating. So I think that that Matthew Mott is a perfect candidate. He's used to training teams to win matches, to win them convincingly, to completely crush another team. And I think that's what England are doing at the moment, which they'll need to continue doing for the next T20 World Cup, which is this year, and the next ODI World Cup, which is in 2023. So I think he's overall a good appointment. But, a lingering question does stick in people's mind. Women's cricket to men's cricket, there is a big change, and it's not a bad thing at all. We're not saying it's a bad thing at all. Just there is a difference between them, obviously. So do you think Matthew Mott will be able to adjust well to it? Do you think the adjustment from women's cricket to men's cricket is going to impact him as a coach, or do you think he should be fine because the techniques and stuff will be similar?
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how he develops as moving into men's cricket. I think in terms of technique, it's not really much different. It's just transition between women's to men's. That would be the interesting one to see. I think it would definitely broaden his experience a lot. Moving into men's cricket and understanding. You got really quick bowlers. You got batsmen who can whack it a long way. Not to say that women's cricket can't do that. Obviously, women's cricket is an excellent place to play, and he's got plenty of experience doing women's cricket. But in men's cricket, I don't think he has much experience. So I think really, I don't think he needs to change anything. It's just it will take some time to get used to men's cricket. It's a little bit different, but I think he doesn't need to change anything about his coaching style. And I think he'll just all he'll do really is just broaden experience as a white ball coach.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think that he can adjust, and that's good. Overall, that's a very exciting appointment for English cricket because it's someone who has, a bit of credibility. They've shown it, and we talked about Brendan McCullum and the fact that he hadn't done any red ball coaching, and he was becoming England's test team coach. So we were like, was that enough? Was there enough? Had he had enough experience? Was it good enough for a team that's struggling? We've sort of got the opposite here. For a team that already is very good in England's white ball team, we have a very experienced coach, which could still work, obviously. But I think I would have preferred it if there's a more experienced coach who'd play for the test, who would have been the coach of the test team rather than white ball team. But overall, I think that's a good appointment, and I think that we can see England are second in the ODI and T20I rankings, so we want to push it back up to top, and we should be looking to win both the ODI World Cup in 2023 and the T20I World Cup in 2022. So let's go on to the next part of the English cricket segment, and that's England's 13-man squad, which was recently announced for the upcoming Test series against New Zealand in June, which is at home in England. The squad goes as like this. So Ben Stokes as captain, obviously. James Anderson, Johnny Bairstow, Stuart Broad, Harry Brook, Zach Crawley, Ben Folkes, Jack Leach, Alex Lees, Craig Overton, Matthew Potts, Ollie Pope, and Joe Root. We're not going to talk about everyone here, but Zaid, if you were just to look at this squad, what would you say? What are the names that which would make you, which interest you there?
Well, one person that interests me is Matthew Potts. I've never really heard of him. I don't know if is he a bowler. I mean, I've never heard of him at all, really. And Matthew Potts, be very interested to see how he does. Another name, Alex Lees. We saw in the recent series against West Indies. We saw him bat a few times. A decent time of it. So that'll be very interesting to see. And also Joe Root. He's stepped down as captain recently. He's still an amazing batsman, and that'll be very interesting to see how he goes. Now under Ben Stokes, both of them, Ben Stokes and Joe Root, was interesting to see their relationship now on the field and off the field. So those players pop up to me as soon as I look at that squad.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Yeah, Matthew Potts, he's a fast bowler, and he's the top wicket taker in the county championship, I think, and he has credentials. Harry Brook as well. He's been constantly very consistent in the championship this season, the county championship, and also in white ball and red ball formats for in England in domestic cricket. So he's shown he's got versatility in all formats. So this might not just be they might be introducing him. He could be picked for the first test to play in red ball, but then he could also become like into a sort of Ben Stokes or a Joe Root playing all three formats. So that's like a pathway into international cricket, I think. For me, notable exceptions, that's another thing to think about. It's not too many, just because there's a lot of players in injury, especially pace bowlers. There's 6 players who've got who are England pace bowlers and are injured at the moment. So I think for me, Ollie Robinson is notable. I think the view given by the England selectors is that he's not fully fit yet. Is not convinced that he's fully fit. So he won't be playing. He can play, but he's not up to the complete fitness standards. So there aren't too many. You could say Dom Bess as well. He's been playing county championship cricket at the moment. With one key spinner in the team, with that being Jack Leach. It sort of shows the direction that England are going in at the moment. They're going to stick with Jack Leach. He's their frontline spinner. Jack Leach probably isn't completely comfortable with his position yet, but at least he's got the faith of the England selectors and things. So he's their main spinner. Obviously Joe Root can bowl some part-time spin. Apart from that, not really anyone else. Let's look at batsmen. So we've Zaid, what do you think the top order is going to be? Looking at the squad, what do you think the top 2 or the top 4, let's just say, of England for England's first test? What do you think the order is going to be?
Well, clearly with this squad, it's you probably know it's going to be Alex Lees and Zach Crawley to open up. Burns is not here, Sibley's not here, so it's obviously going to be Zach Crawley and Alex Lees to open batting. Then at number 3, it might be. I think it's either going to be Johnny Bairstow or Ollie Pope, because Joe Root, he's definitely at 4. Bairstow said so. I think it's either going to be Bairstow or Pope at 3, probably Bairstow, I think. Then at 4 Joe Root and 5 Stokes. So everything's fine. I just think number 3 is the one that England will have to think about who's going to go at number 3.
Yeah. So I'd say Zach Crawley, Alex Lees is in there. Right, Ollie Pope. See, because obviously it's 13-man squad, meaning 2 people won't play. In terms of batsmen, you have Ben Stokes, Harry Brook, Zach Crawley. Ben Folkes is guaranteed playing because he's the keeper. And you've got Joe Root, Ben Stokes, Ben Folkes, 3 guaranteed batsmen, and then you could fill up and Johnny Bairstow as well due to form. That's your 4 batsmen. Then you've either got and you've got Joe Root and Harry Brook and Alex Lees. I think Alex Lees might not. I think he's in the squad, but I'm not really convinced by him just because he doesn't have a good enough record in terms of like county cricket as well. I'm not sure. I think his average is in like I think it's in the low 30s in first class cricket, and compared to people like Joe Root and stuff, I don't think it's good enough. It's not. I wouldn't really be like convinced with him playing. So I'm not really there. Yeah, his average is something like 36. It's not bad at all, but I wouldn't trust him to. I wouldn't really. He hasn't looked that convincing enough. So yeah, in terms of bowling attack though, James Anderson and Stuart Broad are both in the squad. So that shows that Ben Stokes is. We've already known this for a while, but Ben Stokes is taking a different approach. Rather than try and prolong their careers, they're trying to use them as much as they can where they're bowling at their best. Which Zay, do you agree with that? Do you think they should be rotating, resting them, and then like trying to use them sporadically, or do you think they should be using them for every test that they can just to put out the best team?
I think they've got to put out the best team. We've discussed this before as well. Rest and rotation. I disagree with that. It's not. I think, especially with England's situation at the moment, you want to reset. You want to win some games, and Anderson and Broad are key to that. They've got to play. And yeah, they're at the back end of the career, especially Anderson. Broad's got a few years to go. But Anderson, he's at the back end of his career, but still, you've got to get the most out of him, especially when you're back in England now. So I think really with bowling attack, for me, it's probably going to be. I think both Anderson and Broad should play in that 11. Another thing to add to that, maybe someone like Overton, maybe Jack Leach. These 4, for me, is probably going to be my 4 bowlers. The main bowlers for me. Matthew Potts could play, but I haven't seen him, so I'm not really sure. But I think Anderson and Broad, I would play both of them in the 11.
Yeah. So finally, if you were to make your own like 11 for the first test, what would you put as your 11? So we'll start with batsmen. Top 4. What would your top 4 be?
So my top 4, I mentioned before, I think Alex Lees and Zach Crawley, and I've actually changed my mind. I think Zach Crawley, Alex Lees to open. Then perhaps Harry Brook at 3. I think that'll be very interesting. I think Harry Brook, I want to see him at 3. Then I would put Joe Root at 4. So that would probably be my top 4.
Okay. I'm not really sure. It's tough to decide. So Joe Root at 400%. I think I'd open with Zach Crawley because you don't really have another proper opener out there. I think you could put Johnny Bairstow. Would they experiment Johnny Bairstow? I mean, no, I think his technique is more. Let's just say Alex Lees and Zach Crawley, just because both their techniques are suited to opening. Even Zach Crawley could say is not really a proper opener, but like they have opened and they've done well at it. So those 2 opening. 3, I'd put Johnny Bairstow. I think because Harry Brook has played mainly first class and domestic cricket at like 5, so I think I'd keep him somewhere like that. 4 would be Joe Root. So what would your middle and lower order be then, Zaid? So from 5 to 11.
Yeah, so as I said, Alex Lees, Crawley opening, Brook 3, Root 4, then 5 Stokes. I think he's mostly suited to that role for many years now. So Stokes 5. Then 6, I'd go with Johnny Bairstow. I think he's, especially in Test cricket, he's more suited to that role. I think number 6 for me is a better. Or top order would be a little bit difficult. I think I wouldn't want him there. But no, so that number 6 Bairstow. 7 Ben Folkes for me. Then number 8, I would go with Overton. He can bat a bit, but mainly as a bowler. Overton. Then 9, Jack Leach. 10, Stuart Broad, and 11, Anderson.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd just like to say Stokes has said himself that he's batting at 6, so he's gone back to 6. So would you swap Bairstow and Stokes around then? Put Bairstow at 5, Stokes at 6.
Yeah. Then I'd go with then Bairstow 5 and Stokes 6.
Yeah. So for me, I said top order would be Alex Lees, Zach Crawley. 3, I want to put Johnny Bairstow. I think his technique should be enough to survive. Obviously, this is it'd be better off if he plays to a slightly older ball after 20-25 overs rather than coming in after like an over or 2. Then I would then for 4's Root 5, I'd put Harry Brook, 6 Stokes, 7 Folkes, obviously keeper, 8. I think I'll go with Matthew Potts. Actually no, no, 8 Stuart Broad, 9 Matthew Potts, 10 Jack Leach, 11 Jimmy Anderson. But the bottom 4 doesn't really matter. I could change it around, but I think rather than go with Craig Overton, he hasn't always been very threatening in terms of bowler, and he's not either an express pace bowler, and he's not too swing. He's not a swing bowler either. He's sort of in the middle, a bit of a seam bowler. So I think we're going with someone like Matthew Potts, giving him a chance first test. I think that's probably I think for me that I'd do that. But yeah. So the main discrepancy between both our squads is the positioning of Johnny Bairstow. I put him at 3, you put him at 5, and also Craig Overton versus Matthew Potts. But overall, it's a pretty similar squad. Because they've narrowed it down to 13, there's nothing too much to look at. But anyway, I think that's it for this episode. We still got a couple of weeks till the first test in New Zealand, but the squad's already out. In looking long term, we want to see Jofra Archer back, for example. Jofra Archer, key player. We really want to see him back. He can't play this summer, but maybe next year, this winter, he might be able to play cricket. Ollie Robinson, another, who's had a pretty good start to Test cricket. So they're 2 players we want to see back. And, a lot of ODI, T20I cricket, World Cup coming up. So there's a lot of cricket coming up this year. The summer's only just began, but there's a lot to come. And there's a lot to come throughout the winter as well. So yeah, thank you, Zaid, for this episode. And yeah, see you in the next one.